Okay, so you guys have mastered factoring out the greatest common factor. Today we're going to use that skill to do something called factor by grouping. Okay, so sometimes the greatest common factor is actually a collection of, let's say actually a group of terms. Okay, so if we look at these two terms here, what is the greatest common factor? So if you notice, I know it looks a little weird, but see how they both have an x minus 2? That is the common factor. So we're going to take that out. And if we divide that out from each, what's left over? Well, there's a 3x and there's a plus 7. Okay, so that's what these are going to look like today. The common factor is actually going to be a grouping, and then when you pull it out, the leftover stuff goes in the other parenthesis. That's what's left over. Okay, so let's try a couple of those because it's kind of a new thing. So number 1, see how they both have a 7x minus 5? We're going to divide that out. So we're going to take that out. And when we divide it out, what remains? The 2x squared plus the 3. And that's your answer. All right, one more, number 2. They both have a 4x plus 2, which means we can divide that out. And when you divide that out of both, then the leftover stuff is 3x minus 2. Okay, so this is called factoring. Well, we didn't do factor by grouping yet. All right, so here's how we use it. When you are given 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, you need to make your own groups and then do this factoring by grouping. Okay, so sometimes it seems like the terms don't have anything in common. When this happens, we make our own groups and look for common factors. Hint, always make sure that your terms are in descending order first. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, so this one's already in descending order. Here's what you guys are going to do. You're going to pair them up into groups of 2. And we're going to pull out the GCF of each one. Okay, so look at these guys. What is the GCF? What can you guys divide out of these two green terms? So if it helps to put a 1, you could pull out a 1 and then 2 of the x's, right, the smaller amount. And then actually divide that out. So 1 divided by 1 is 1. And then 3 minus 2, so there's 1x left. And then minus 3 divided by 1 is 3, and there's no x's left. So this is just the old GCF. And then we're going to do the old GCF for the red ones. So what is the common factor of 2x and minus 6? Well, it's just a 2, a positive 2. And then if you divide out the 2, you're left with x minus 3. Okay, now this is what we just did up above. See how they both have a 1x minus 3? Right, because technically we could put a 1 here. Same thing. Well, then you take that out. And what's left for the other parenthesis? It's the 1x squared plus the 2. This is called factor by grouping. That's your answer. Okay, so GCF from the first 2, GCF from the second 2, pull out the common factor from both, and then the leftovers are your second parenthesis. It's called factor by grouping. All right, let's try one more. Number 1. Now, first thing, we got to rewrite it in descending order. So I'm going to rewrite it so the exponents are going down. So 1x cubed plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 10. Okay, let's do it, guys. So we need the GCF from the first two, and then we need the GCF from the second two to start. All right, so what can you guys divide out of both of these? I would say a 1x squared. Now, when you divide that out, what's left? Well, x to the third divided by x squared is just 1x. And then 2 divided by 1 is 2. No x's left. Now, what's the GCF of negative 5 and negative 10? Remember we said if the front one is negative, you got to pull out a negative. And then 5 and 10 have a GCF of 5. Okay, so if you divide them both by negative 5, a negative divided by a negative is a 1x. A negative divided by a negative is a plus 2. And you'll know you did it right when these match. 1x plus 2, 1x plus 2. So now we have to factor that out. So the x plus 2 comes out, and the other parenthesis is whatever's left. 1x squared minus 5. That is the answer. All right, guys, one more. If you got it and you want to stop, feel free, but I have a feeling that most of us probably need one more. Okay, so number 2, they are in descending order, so we are ready to go. So GCF from these, and then GCF from these. Okay, what can you guys divide out of these two terms? I would say definitely an 8, and the smaller amount of r's, so r squared. Now actually divide it out. 8 divided by 8 is 1r, minus 64 divided by 8 is 8, and there's no r's left. Now, what's the GCF of these guys? Does 1r and 8 have anything in common? No. So when that happens, just pull out a 1, a plus 1. And then if you divide by 1, it's just going to stay r minus 8. Okay, we're in good shape because these match. So now the common factor is the 1r minus 8. So that comes out, and the remaining stuff goes in the second parenthesis. 8r squared plus 1. Okay, so this is called factor by grouping. Nice job.